what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Welcome to Mark Dolan Tonight. Mark is still gallivanting away on holiday, so it's going to be me, Andrew Doyle, standing in for him tonight. But don't worry, we have got plenty in store for you this evening. Coming up in my big opinion, after police removed some lesbians from a Pride march, I'll be asking, is the Pride movement now homophobic? Then in the big question, after a man was almost killed at some work drinks, are we consuming way too much alcohol? At 10:20, we'll be crossing to the States for the best of America's news with the queen of showbiz, Kinsey Schofield. And as always at 10:30 with me and my wonderful panel, we'll be going through tomorrow's front pages. But first, here are the headlines with Tatiana Sanchez.
Thank you, Andrew. It's 9 o'clock. I'm Tatiana Sanchez in the GB newsroom. Two men who were arrested on suspicion of murdering Olivia Pratt-Corbell in Liverpool have been released on bail. The 9-year-old was killed by a gunman in her home on Monday. One of the men who was questioned has been recalled to prison after breaching the terms of his licence. Police have also renewed their appeal for more information, urging the public to come forward so they can bring those responsible to justice. The Chancellor has acknowledged middle-income earners and the most vulnerable face hardship over the coming months. Nadeem Zahawi says he's concerned about people who aren't on benefits, telling the Daily Telegraph those earning around £45,000 a year may also need government support. It's after Ofgem announced an 80% hike in the energy price cap. The Met Police will be investigated following the death of a man in Kingston in southwest London. Officers were in the process of making an arrest following an allegation of theft when he entered the River Thames last night. His body was recovered 2 hours later. Police say he wasn't in handcuffs. The incident has been referred to the Independent Office for Police Conduct. 3 years after he was killed in a crash, the family of Harry Dunn say they miss him terribly. The memorial ride has been staged at the US Embassy in London to mark the anniversary of his death. The 19-year-old was killed when his motorbike collided with a car, which was allegedly being driven on the wrong side of the road. American Anne Sakoulas was charged with causing death by dangerous driving, but she was allowed to leave the country because she had diplomatic immunity. And a car once owned by Princess Diana has sold at auction for £650,000. The black Ford Escort RS Turbo, which was driven by the royal between 1985 and 1988, was initially expected to fetch around £100,000. Silverstone Auction says the RS Turbo Series 1 was usually made in white, but the royal family police guard asked for Diana's to be painted black for reasons of discretion. NASA is launching a new mission to put humans back on the moon. The first test flight of the Artemis program on Monday will be unmanned, but astronauts are scheduled to be on board in 2024. The eventual aim is to build a base camp on the moon where people can live and work. NASA sees these missions as a new chapter in space travel.
It's no longer the Apollo generation. It's the Artemis generation. And that brings new discoveries, a whole new world of discoveries.
TV, online and DAB Plus radio. This is GB News. Now it's back to Mark Dolan Tonight with Andrew.
Thank you, Tatiana. And welcome to Mark Dolan Tonight with me, Andrew Doyle. We've got everything you need to get you through this Saturday night. Coming up in my big opinion, is the Pride movement now homophobic? In the big question, we'll be asking if we are drinking too much alcohol after a man had to have part of his skull removed after overdoing it on a night out. I'll also be meeting the Muck MC, who's the waiter who is taking London by storm, rapping while he serves burgers at McDonald's. And with me throughout my show is my brilliant all-star panel of Olympic athlete turned broadcaster Lisa Mason, lawyer and author Rebecca Jane, and last but definitely not least, political commentator Benedict Spence. With them, I'll be discussing if we are lazier than ever before as a society. Are we unfair to old people? Plus, we have the best of the news from stateside and tomorrow's papers. Lots to get through, so let's get going. First up, my big opinion. Many years ago, when I was in my late teens or early 20s, I was locked into a restaurant for about half an hour because the gay pride parade outside had been attacked by homophobic thugs. Now, I didn't see much of the commotion. I was simply told that the front doors had to be locked in case any of the troublemakers tried to make their way in. Nowadays, this kind of thing rarely happens at Pride. Homophobia of that kind has become extremely rare. And anyway, Pride has become a family day out. Most of the people there seem to be heterosexuals. Now that gay people have equality under the law and homophobia is uncommon, Pride isn't so much a protest anymore, but a party. But over the past few years, there's been another evolution. In 2022, many gay men and lesbians now feel that they are not welcome at Pride, that it's become a hostile environment for those who are same-sex attracted. And all of this has happened because prominent gay rights groups, such as Stonewall, have become captured by gender identity ideology. Stonewall, in fact, has redefined the word homosexual on its website and promotional materials to mean same-gender attracted rather than same-sex attracted. Other organisations, such as the BBC, have followed suit, perhaps unaware that the implications of this change are essentially anti-gay. At the heart of gay rights is the recognition of biological sex differences. Lesbians aren't attracted to people who identify as female, they're attracted to females. This shouldn't be a controversial thing to say. And yet, this is what happened when a group of lesbians tried to march at a pride parade in Cardiff earlier today.
We're marching in a march.
At the moment...
No, I just want to make sure...
Yeah, you know now. Let me just explain to you, and it'll give you some understanding.
Yeah.
So at the moment, your march, this group of people, is causing confrontation between different groups of people.
Lesbians. We're lesbians. It's gay pride.
Whatever you are at the moment is causing...
I did not want to...
Say that you march yourselves.
We don't want to do that. We want to be
But that's your choice. So what I'm telling you is to make sure it's safe. We are going to remove you from the road, and I want you to do that of your own accord.
I want to make sure I understand that you're removing lesbians from like LGBT march.
Yes, that is.
Many LGBT people march at Pride and hold up banners and placards for their cause. This group of lesbians were marching with banners that said the following: lesbians don't like penises, trans activism erases lesbians, and the cotton ceiling is rape. Some of these might require some explanation. The word queer has long been an offensive term used against gay people, but it's now increasingly being adopted by straight people who don't feel they fit into the typical sex binary. As for the cotton ceiling, this is a variation on the concept of the glass ceiling, which is a phrase used by feminists to describe the career limitations that women face in a patriarchal system. The cotton ceiling and boxer ceiling, allusions to female and male underwear, refer to the barriers that trans people might face in attempting to have sex with individuals who are same-sex attracted. There was even a session hosted in Toronto by a prominent trans activist whose goal was to help the participants to identify barriers and strategize ways to overcome them. It's hardly surprising that so many lesbians have reported being pressurized into having sex with biological males who identify as women. It might seem obvious that lesbians aren't interested in people with penises, and yet the CEO of Stonewall, Nancy Kelly, has compared such preferences to sexual racism. Back in the 1980s, homophobes used to say that lesbians just hadn't found the right man yet. And nowadays, it's gay rights groups saying that. It's quite incredible how anti-gay ideas are now being promoted by those who claim to support gay rights. But that's the topsy-turvy world we're living in. Many gay and lesbian activists of yesteryear, those who fought for equality back when it was dangerous to do so, are now coming out of retirement to fight this new homophobia. Some people believe it to be much more virulent and common than even it was back in the 1980s. Yes, back then there were terrible occasions when homophobes would attack pride parades, but at least no one claimed that they were progressive. Nowadays, you have police officers chucking lesbians out of their own event and social justice activists claiming that gay people are anti-trans bigots because they aren't attracted to the opposite sex. None of this is progressive. It's the opposite. And unless we take a stand against it, it's only going to get worse. With me now and joining me throughout the show is my all-star panel, Olympic gymnast Lisa Mason, lawyer, author and TV personality Rebecca Jane, and political commentator and journalist Benedict Spence. So I'll come to you first, if you don't mind, Lisa. What do you make of what's going on here at Pride, seeing these lesbians kicked out of the Pride Parade? Any thoughts?
I think, you know, gay pride was, correct me if I'm wrong, set up by 2 gay men and 2 lesbians, as far as I'm aware. As I said, correct me if I'm wrong. The whole thing was set up to protect people that identified as something that was deemed as different. And I feel like we are now in the world where it's such a sensitive subject, and anyone that has an opinion on it or has anything to say on it that, you know, may be straight and not identify as something else, you can't say anything. And I think a lot of people can kind of take advantage of that and run with it and come up with their own little, this is what is right and this is what's wrong because, you know, I identify as X, Y and Z. And I think it's going a little bit crazy.
Well, we saw there from the clip, I mean, there were people screaming at each other, and of course we had to bleep some of the words out. And I've spoken to one of the lesbians who was removed from the Pride event, and she was saying that they were getting a lot of abuse, a lot of screaming, a lot of homophobic slurs that I can't even repeat on the TV now. So, Rebecca Jane, what do you make of this? I mean, it's actually quite a confusing thing, isn't it? Because we assume when we see the gay pride parades and we see the rainbow-coloured flags and everything, that this is all about gay rights and gay positivity, and actually we're now seeing activists within that community turning on gay people.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, this is supposed to be the ultimate display of inclusivity, and actually what we're seeing is completely the opposite. So I think it's an absolute load of mumbo-jumbo. I think it's completely confusing. I don't think anybody knows whether they're coming or going. And actually, I think that the thing that we're all forgetting here is that we need to respect everybody's view, bar the extremists, if I'm being brutally honest, because we've all become this society that we're all terrified of saying what's right or wrong. This is wrong. Categorically, I am sure I'm going to get a whole lot of abuse on Twitter, but this is wrong. Those lesbians had a point to make. They are completely right to do so, and they should have been allowed to do so. And the police should have made a stand themselves, but, you know, hey-ho, this is the society we now live in.
Well, I've seen a lot of messages online about this, and a lot of people seem to be taking the view that because these lesbians were holding up signs saying lesbians don't like penises, they are therefore being transphobic. In other words, the implication here is that if you are same-sex attracted, if you are homosexual, you're a transphobe. Benedict Spence, does that make any sense to you?
Oh, actually, yes, logically it does make sense. And that's why, in many ways, actually, this is rather amusing, because I can remember when I was back at university and this first, you know, this part of the discourse first sort of came onto the scene. A lot of people were sort of, when the idea of things like gender fluidity and everything being constructed and therefore there being a need to sort of deconstruct things, you know, it was sort of pushed on campus. A lot of people pushed back on it, certainly in conservative circles, and were sort of shouted down for being bigots. But what was being said, actually, from a lot of people from the sort of the centre-right was, this is going to end up in a sort of a word soup of, you know, things following on rationally, leading to a situation where the movement will end up eating itself, because revolutions like this do. Utopianist sort of ideals often end up persecuting and purging themselves, because if they reach a logical endpoint, then they only have each other to turn in on. And this is exactly what's happening. And yeah, so I say it's rational. It would be rather amusing if it weren't leading to people being persecuted, because this is stuff that actually was being pointed out over a decade ago, that this would end up happening. A lot of people were shouted down and said, no, you're a bigot, you have to be very tolerant of all of these perspectives and everything will be happy and there'll just be rainbows and everybody will get along. And so we all sit back and we go, OK, cool, enjoy that. And now here we are, 10 years later. And as we've just seen, lesbians being prevented from going to their own Pride March by a police officer saying, whatever you are right now. You know, a more bizarre set of words to come out of a policeman's mouth I don't think I've ever heard.
Is this just the inevitable result of when we prioritise this idea of gender over the idea of biological sex? Because, you know, my view on this is that we should take the liberal approach insofar as anyone has the right to identify however they please, call themselves whatever they want, use whatever pronouns or words, whatever they want to do. But what they can't do is then encroach on other people and say, you must use the words that I want and you must allow me into your dating pool. I mean, that seems like a genuinely shocking thing to suggest. Isn't that right, Lisa? What do you think?
Oh, my goodness. I think I agree with what these guys have said. It's all just a little bit much right now. And ultimately, whoever you decide to be is whoever you decide to be. Whoever you want to lay down with is no one's bloody business. There could be a guy that I can find completely attractive. He doesn't find me attractive. I'm not going to be like, no, you are out of line, sir. You should date me. People will be who they want to be. I don't understand.
It'd be like you saying that if someone doesn't find you attractive, they're a bigot. It's the equivalent of what's going on.
Oh, I completely agree with that. I think all three of us completely agree with that. I mean, come on.
Well, it's an interesting approach, isn't it, I suppose? But it does feel coercive.
If anybody has tried this, does it work? We'll reach out to the people at this march. Does this work for you? Has it massively improved your rates of success?
I mentioned this cotton ceiling workshop, and this workshop was designed and set up so that people could, in other words, learn how to seduce people who weren't attracted to them. I mean, that seems to be what the point of this is.
I think if you need a workshop to learn how to seduce somebody, I think actually that's nature telling you that you're not best placed to be reproducing. I mean, that might sound quite harsh, but honestly...
It does sound quite harsh.
I've often thought that, though. Actually, if you need somebody else to sort of sit down and go, right, here's how to make yourself more attractive to somebody.
Yeah. Well, Rebecca, do you think that this debate has just gone way too toxic? I mean, look... It should be possible for adults to disagree, to have a different point of view, without just calling each other terrible names and even calling each other bigots and anti-trans, whatever. You know, these slurs that are being thrown around. And I've met an awful lot of feminists who take the view that these lesbians have taken, and I've never met any feminist from that perspective who hates trans people or is anti-trans. J.K. Rowling is continually smeared as hateful and transphobic, even though she's never said anything hateful or transphobic. So how can we get the adults back in the room? How can we have this important discussion?
What's a very good question. Isn't that where we should all start from? I'm going to say that it is where it's the judgment perspective in all of this. We need to drop judging everybody for whatever they say and do. I am going to make quite a clear stance and say that I have some issues in this topic because it's getting to a point where I'm going to say that in 5 years' time, I genuinely believe that if I turn around and tell somebody I now identify as a llama, people are going to have to believe me. So, unfortunately, we're going to have to stop somewhere. So, you can identify as whatever you want, but I don't have to believe in that.
Well, do you identify as a llama?
Not today.
OK.
There's time yet, though. Flamingo!
I'm just
a flamingo.
clarifying. I don't want to misspecies you. But the thing is, there are people. I mean, there was a story this week about a student in Australia who identifies as a cat, and the school is going along with it. Now, I don't know...
My 5-year-old identifies as a cat most days, to be fair. So.
My 9-year-old identifies as a mermaid.
Oh, there you are.
But they have such much more rich and vibrant lives than me. I mean, this is really a whole new world.
This feels self-satirising, doesn't it? This feels so self-evidently ridiculous. And it's easy to mock it and sort of say, well, this is just silliness, we can just ignore it. But there are actually major implications to this. I mean, for instance, the NHS is accommodating people. They have single-sex accommodation on NHS wards. But their policy at the NHS is to accommodate according to gender identity, not according to biological sex. So you could be an intact male who identifies as female and be on a ward with women. But then if another woman, a female patient, complains, the NHS policy is for staff to say to that woman, no, you are mistaken, there are no men here. In other words, to gaslight them. And we had recently a sexual assault on a ward, and this was reported by Baroness Nicholson in the House of Lords. There was a sexual assault on an NHS ward. When the police turned up and questioned the staff about it, the staff said that couldn't have happened because there were no men on this ward, even though they knew there was a man who identified as a woman. So there are very, very serious implications to all of this stuff, as well as the frivolous. What do you think of that, Benedict?
I don't want to go sort of all end of days, fire and brimstone stuff, but this is kind of the point at which, if you can't say the obvious, then trust in society will actually start to break down. And that is all that society is ultimately based on, is the idea of trust. If you have single-sex wards where, let's be honest, if you are in hospital, say, and you are a woman, you are automatically in a more vulnerable position than if you're not in hospital because you are requiring care. To then put a biological male, whatever the circumstances of their being in hospital might be, on that ward, that makes you feel more vulnerable. That potentially does make you physically more vulnerable. So the idea that just on the off chance that you might hurt that individual's feelings, that man's feelings, you can't speak out or say anything. It's so fundamentally wrong. You will get people not wanting to go into hospitals. People might say, "Oh, that's ridiculous. Of course, people go into hospitals." I'm speaking as a man. Men often don't go to the doctor over coughs and all sorts of things that end up leading to be very serious things. People will stop going and dealing with services that the state is supposed to provide if they can't trust the state to tell them the truth. I know we all like to joke about the fact that our state in particular is very bad at telling the truth, but this is a really basic truth. Yeah. Is there a man? Is there a woman? You should be able to answer that without fear that you're going to hurt somebody's feelings.
But in addition, acknowledging the reality of biological sex isn't a transphobic thing to do. And as Blair White, the trans writer and YouTuber, has pointed out, if there's no such thing as biological sex, there's no such thing as being trans. So actually, it's very strange that this has been reframed as though we are being bigots simply for acknowledging reality.
Again, I think that this is just a fastidiousness, though, about bureaucracy. This is people who are not necessarily very well versed in, as we've just discussed, it's very complex, deliberately in some ways, complex terminology. And if you're a sort of a hospital administrator, what are you going to do? You're going to actually spend all the time that you could be spending actually having to deal with very serious issues in the NHS with going through the minutiae of all the different, trans terminology? Or are you just going to go, no, this could be a potential hate crime, I don't know how, but it could be, so you just say no, you just follow this line.
And can I ask Rebecca and Lisa specifically, do you feel that women's-only spaces must be preserved, places like hospital wards, domestic violence refuge centres, even changing facilities, and obviously prisons have been discussed as well, but how do you feel about that?
Yeah, sorry. I know it's not the right thing to do, and I know it's not the right thing to say anymore, but absolutely. And it's not just, it's the small stuff. Like, I checked myself out of hospital when I'd had my daughter, when I was on a ward with 4 other women. If there was a man there or a trans man there, yeah, I'm sorry, I would be incredibly uncomfortable, and I would not stay. But that, just my opinion. Yeah. Carry on, Lisa.
I just think that we're in a society now where we're valuing feelings over facts. And I think that, facts aren't like, feelings aren't facts, are they? We can all feel some type of way about something. But, yeah. I mean, ultimately, yes, there are going to be a lot of people that are very uncomfortable. I mean, here, you have a shared toilet. Disabled toilets are shared.
Yeah, but I wouldn't like it here. Because the cubicles are all individual. When you're in your cubicle, you are just in that, and I'm okay with that. But if they were more like what normal toilets are, then I would feel uncomfortable with that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how I would feel, or if men stand in their little, what do you call them?
Urinal.
That's the one. I don't know how I'd feel coming in and seeing, a woman, a trans that identifies as a woman, lifting up their skirt and peeing up a urinal. I don't know. I don't know how I'd feel about it. Well, I mean, I'd probably mind my business, to be honest, and go in a cubicle. But,
of course. But I suppose some women who've been through, domestic violence and this kind of thing, it matters to them to have these spaces.
Absolutely. But I think at the same time, you need to take a flip side to this, because if you have trans women and they have to go into the men's toilet, there's abuse there also. And there are a lot of men that can feel threatened and attack in a way. So, I mean, it's a catch-22, because either side, I believe there's going to be some form of negative feelings.
Well, it's a huge debate, and I'm sure it's going to roll on and on. It doesn't seem to be getting resolved anytime soon. But anyway, coming up, in the big question, do we drink too much? In our news agendas, are we lazier than ever? And, of course, there'll be the papers at 10:30.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday. And there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. You've been cancelled. Join the club. Oh, my goodness me. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Welcome back to Mark Dolan Tonight with me, Andrew Doyle. Just before we move on to the big question, I'm going to read out some of the emails we've been getting in. Thanks for sending those in. And remember, you can continue to do so at gbviews@gbnews.uk. So Andrew says, shocking that men can tell women they are not allowed to go to Pride. Lesbians don't like penises. Why is that remotely controversial? No, I don't think it should be. We also have Jackie here. Jackie says, the Pride Festival is now so woke, it's pointless. It seems that it is OK for men to be trans, gay or whatever, but women are not allowed to be anything. As Louis Schaefer says, love is being killed. OK, it's a nice reference to Lewis, who is often on my show on a Sunday. Adrian says, you should not be allowed to say all of a sudden you're a woman when you are a man and get a bed in a woman's ward, but you can in a mental health hospital. Okay. So that's quite harsh, Adrian. And then we've got this one from Dominic. It's pretty simple. You cannot allow, what do we say here? Hatred of trans people on a Pride march. It's really about hatred, not reality. So that, I mean, this is very interesting, Dominic, because I didn't see any hatred from the lesbians involved in this on that march. So you would have to provide some evidence for that. It's quite a claim. It does need to be backed up. Anyway, it's time now for the big question, in which we tackle a major news story of the day. A financial auditor is suing his employers after injuring himself so badly on a work night out that part of his skull had to be removed. Michael Brockie has opened a £200,000 lawsuit after he was found unconscious following the excessive pub golf drinking game. Court papers reportedly say those who attended were told to down pints in as few mouthfuls as possible, with the lowest scores being the winners, and it encouraged excessive consumption. Many associate alcohol with socialising, especially after work, but who is then responsible for you, and should it be forced on you? So are we drinking too much as a nation, and does it become more of a problem when mixed with work? Joining me to discuss this are Sandra Parker, founder of sobriety support group Just the Tonic, and Alan Miller, co-founder of the Nighttime Association. So, Sandra, I'm going to come to you first. Thanks both for joining me, by the way. Sandra, what do you make of this? Do you think that we are now moving into a culture where we're just drinking too much? And should we be taking responsibility for our own alcohol consumption?
So first of all, I would say that this is obviously a very distressing and extreme example. In terms of us taking responsibility, I think the interesting thing in this case, it was someone quite young. You know, we have a duty of care. Employers have a duty of care to all their staff. And I would say when someone's quite young and they're trying to fit into the workplace, it's really, really important that management do not encourage or persuade people to drink excessive amounts.
But could the people on these late night, whatever it was, the golf drinking game, could not the I mean, these are adults, aren't they? Ultimately, could they not have said, no, I'm not going to participate in this?
I mean, of course, they're adults. I guess, from my experience as a coach, I work with people from a variety of backgrounds, and every single working organisation, people say to me, the common thread is there's a big drinking culture where I work. And yes, we can absolutely say no, but in a lot of cases, it's quite difficult to do that. If you're starting out your working career and you're trying to fit in with the culture, the last thing that you want to do is be the one person in the team that refuses to have a drink or refuses to join in. So people are often put under pressure, and it's really unnecessary. And this example is extreme, but it's, quite shocking, what that can lead to.
Alan Miller, I'm going to come to you now. Do you think this is just a question of personal responsibility?
Yeah, I think just to contextualise it, we've had alcohol for thousands of years, celebrating lives, births, marriages, deaths as well. It's an enormously important part of our culture, and for the majority of people, it's a fantastic, enjoyable thing. Interestingly, in the last 3 decades, we drink far less in Britain. If you look at how many people actually drink at a nightclub, the average drink is a drink and a half. There is, however, something that's changed, which is that with getting rid of pubs and also intergenerational interaction, that kind of expecting to behave a certain way and to be adult and grown up, that used to be part, excuse me, of the rites of passage. That's kind of gone away a bit with the advent of a lot of pubs going and a bit of intergenerational stuff. But I am very concerned that whenever the policy discussion comes around the public, it's always alcohol harms, it's called, they have these terms like antisocial behaviour, alcohol-related crimes, alcohol-related harms. But in fact, we're much better behaved than we were in the last 3 decades. I joke with some of the older police who used to talk about Friday fight night. Yet we've got an obsession as though the public are somehow out of control. If you look at young people predominantly now, they'll think about the 1 or 2 type of cocktails they'll have with the kind of food they have. Very different, actually, to drinking before. But I do think it's part of an overall approach that kind of demonises the public. A bit like that thing they did at New Year's Eve a few years ago, where they presented this idea of everyone being a bit like Shameless in a kind of Caravaggio picture, when in actual fact, the majority of towns and cities, alcohol-related places light up our streets. They're great places to meet one another. And actually, we should be arguing for more 24-hour venues and better places everywhere, and stop with the fear-mongering around this.
Sandra Parker, can I ask you about this? I mean, you have this sobriety support group, so presumably you're in favour of sobriety, obviously. But would you like to see the government doing more to encourage people to be sober?
So I guess the first thing I would say is my group is about helping people control alcohol. So I work with people that are looking to get back control, whether that is to moderate, to drink occasionally, or to give up. So I'm not someone that's coming on and saying no one should drink alcohol. I think that for a huge amount of people, probably more people than people realise, because it's such a shameful thing, people don't talk about it. But a lot of people are finding that they are out of control. And in terms of the government, I think that there's a lot of things that people can do. So when we talk about banning things, that's not the approach that I favour. But in this particular instance of the workplace, I think it starts at the top. So the organisation and the management, we live in a multicultural society. There's people that don't drink alcohol for all sorts of reasons, and they can still go to a pub and have an alcohol-free beer. That's absolutely fine. But, people don't drink for religious reasons, for health reasons, or because they're trying to cut down. So if you're a manager, you're the employer, you have a duty to include everyone in your socialising. It doesn't need to revolve around alcohol. You can have fun and you can bond without that. I'm not in favour of banning it, but I think this is just an opportunity for us to take a step back and think, is there a sensible, a better way of socialising within the workplace than pub golf?
So you're in favour of criticising these bosses who are organising these kind of work night outs, rather than forcing them to stop?
Yeah, I mean, I think if you want to get the most out of your workforce, which most people do, if you're a manager, you want your team to do really well. If you want everyone to bond together, organising something like this alleged incident with pub golf, where people are encouraged, let's be honest, this is excessive alcohol. This is not just a pint and then you go home. You know, things like that, something is going to go wrong. If you've got someone junior in the team that's maybe not used to the environment, not used to knowing how much they drink, desperate to impress their peers, things like this will happen. So I think employers have a responsibility, yes.
Alan Miller, do you take Sandra's point that, you know, there are some people who just cannot control their alcohol consumption, they have a major problem with it, and if they are encouraged to drink by their bosses, that's only going to make matters worse?
It's definitely the case that some people will have an issue. The question is, do we then reprogram the whole of society around the question that, and Sandra used this term, people out of control. And I'm very concerned that this out of control label becomes an approach of all work, the government, all sort of nudge units, whether it's about out of control in terms of now that it's seen as being a predator. If you talk to someone in a bar or comment on the way they look, now you're out of control. Who defines what's out of control? Sandra might say it's when people feel they're out of control. I would make the point that actually growing up, particularly when you're young, drinking a bit too much is a really good lesson for people to learn about how to be an adult and do those things. People make mistakes, like you make mistakes in lots of things in life. But it's such an integral part of society. And there's been, if we're honest, let's call it what it is. There's been an assault on alcohol. There's been an assault on licensed premises. There's been an assault on the public as though they're all a bit out of control. Mad, bad and dangerous, crime. When in actual fact, it's the thing that lights up our cities. It's on the dance floor that you get the new fashion. It's where you get the new Stormzy. It's what brings things together. It's what creates new employment and regeneration. And I'm very concerned that the discussion around alcohol becomes about, British culture, a bit like they talk about, you know, those nasty terms about gammons and British people, and they're all mad, you know, they drink too much, they want to fight. This is not the 1970s, right? That is not generally the situation anymore. And I'm concerned about this over interference in our private sphere. Let's get on with the important things in the public sphere and let people make their own decisions as adults.
OK, well, we're almost out of time. So, Sandra, just final word to you on that. Any thoughts?
Well, of course, people can make their own decision, but I would say that you can have a good time. You can go out, you can enjoy yourself. It's what my clients learn to do. You can have a fantastic time. You don't need alcohol. And we're not demonising everyone. We're recognising the fact that more than ever, people are struggling with alcohol. I mean, I know that from the emails that I get every day. We're not saying that we're demonising everyone, but we're saying let's recognise that not everybody wants to drink alcohol, and it should be absolutely okay to say that you don't want to drink alcohol.
Sandra Parker and Alan Miller, thank you both very much for joining me tonight. OK, I'm going to go to my guests now. Lisa Mason, GB Olympic gymnast and broadcaster. Benedict Spence, political commentator and journalist. Rebecca Jane, author, lawyer and broadcaster. I'm going to ask you now what you think about this. Benedict, I'm going to start with you. Are you a big drinker?
I can be. Not as much as I used to be. I think it's a very complex issue because I'm afraid there is a very direct correlation between things like alcohol and antisocial behaviour and crime. There is. There's no point in actually getting away from it. But I don't necessarily think that it's the alcohol that is to blame. I think fundamentally there are lots of underlying reasons why people turn to alcohol in the first place. You know, people live in very, across this country, across the world, people have very difficult lives, and especially people in this country at the moment are going through a very difficult time. And very often
drinking went up during the pandemic.
Well, alcohol is something that people turn to as a sort of a social lubricant, if you like, because it makes it easier to communicate with people. Where very often, we're British, we're repressed, we have sort of social norms that don't necessarily facilitate that. If you live in London, you know that for a while, but it's true actually across other parts of the country as well. It's a very good icebreaker. But if you have other underlying issues, I don't know, sort of unresolved trauma, rage, all kinds of issues that people do carry with them throughout their daily lives that they don't necessarily, don't come to the fore. Alcohol, as it were, can bring those things out. It's not the alcohol that's the problem. It's that fundamentally lots of people are very damaged.
You do wonder, don't you? Like, if we were to go back into, if we were a society that doesn't have alcohol, would we introduce it? Would we think this is a great thing? This is helping us,
No,
Lisa?
I don't think. I mean, alcohol's a natural. It's a depressant, isn't it? It doesn't really make you happy. I mean, I can understand that it kind of brings people out of their shells, and I think especially what's happened these last couple of years, there are people that are a lot more socially awkward, I would say.
Yeah.
But the reality is, I think, especially with Great Britain, we don't really have the same perspective on alcohol as a lot of European countries.
You mean we have bad habits? We overdrink?
We binge drink.
Binge drink,
That's it. And if you go to a lot of younger people and they go out, it's not, oh, we're going to go out and have a good time. It's we're going out to get messed up.
Yeah, but we are seeing trends that younger people are drinking less than they used to. I mean, they're also having less sex, they're doing less drugs. I mean, they seem like
They don't sound happy,
a
do they?
puritanical generation. Rebecca, what do you make of this? Do you think we are demonising people who like a drink?
Yes, absolutely. I think that that's the way that the culture is going now. But then there is also the culture that if you do say no to a drink, no, I'm not drinking, then it's like, well, why not? However, I want to go back to this story because I don't like this story one little bit. This is just compensation culture gone mad.
So you don't think he should be entitled to seek compensation?
I don't even... I'd love to speak to the solicitors that have actually taken his case on, because what on earth are they thinking?
So you're saying it's his responsibility what he drinks?
Absolutely, 1,000,000,000%. This shouldn't even be a thing.
Anyone disagree?
No.
Actually, no. This is actually kind of at the core of what I have to say, is that actually if you have underlying issues, for example, you shouldn't be going out taking alcohol as a drug, you shouldn't be taking stimulants or depressants or anything like that to try and enhance your life. It is about personal responsibility, ultimately.
But from the sound of things, this wasn't to do with depression or anything. He was playing the game.
Not even about... It was not even about depression. But again, if you're playing the game because you feel slightly socially awkward or left out, again, that's a personal issue that alcohol is not going to solve. That's about you as a person.
Lisa, what did you want to say?
Everyone has free will. Everyone can make their own choices. I understand what the lady was saying earlier on with regards to, you know, feeling pressured, especially if you're younger.
Yeah.
But and
He's 28.
At the same time, as a boss, I do believe they should take some form of
I
responsibility.
mean, well, isn't that the question? I mean, should bosses really be organising work events in which people are going to get so drunk that they might injure themselves? Do you think so, Rebecca? Why?
Yeah, because we should be able to trust... These are people we've employed into serious positions, and we should be able to trust them that they're going to be able to act responsibly. How far do we want to take this? Like, I overeat. Should we now not go out for food either? Like, how far do we want to take this? Because, you know, it may encourage me to binge eat. This is ridiculous. This is woke nonsense. God's absolutely
No one's
crazy.
saying you have to keep up. So if your boss is a big drinker...
So we're sensing a consensus here about... You all seem to believe that personal responsibility... But are there not any circumstances where people can be coerced into things where sometimes responsibility needs to be shared a bit more?
I mean, if you want to go down that line, I suppose that there's comparisons there towards drug addiction where people have... certain substances forced upon them having taken other things because it gets them hooked onto that. But I don't really think that we have a culture of that in the UK, of pub landlords going around, well, you've tried this beer, I've got this thing called vodka, you should try it. It doesn't really happen, to be honest with you. I think it's just something that, I don't think it's right to say that it's really forced upon. There might be the very odd circumstances where people have it forced upon them, but it's not the same.
But is it good
really
for children to have a drinking culture? You know,
No.
they see that their parents get drunk all the time. They see that this is celebrated in the media. Is that a good thing, Lisa?
I mean, I don't know if I think, like I said, I think the way that our relationship is with alcohol in Great Britain, I think is very different from Europe. And if you look at places like Russia, that is a predominantly big country for vodka. You know, a lot of the kids, they drink in the house from a young age. They're taught about responsible drinking. And I think here it's more, like I said, it's binging. It's,
I mean, there's a curious thing, though, actually. It's sort of the closer you get to the Arctic Circle, the more problems you tend to have with alcohol in society. It might be because you have a lack of vitamin D.
Well, I mean,
that was something that was being foisted upon us, wasn't it? That'll stop you getting COVID.
I mean, when I've been to Italy and I've noticed the way that they drink there, it's very different. People drink, they have a glass of wine at lunch.
In church.
Yes.
There's that. But although they drink late at night as well. But what they don't do, I mean, I used to live in Ipswich, so I know, which at night, on a Saturday night, is apocalyptic, let's face it. Everyone's drunk, they're bare-chested and fighting in car parks.
Well, as somebody from Norwich, I can tell you that's just because Ipswich is apocalyptic.
Well, that's why
the Luftwaffe bombed it first.
We don't want to support them. But then also up in Newcastle, you see, sometimes, like, some of these cities, some of these provincial towns, it's very scary late at night because we have a culture where we are binge drinking too much. That can't be good, can it?
But you know what? The first evidence of wine being made was in Iran 7,500 years ago. They drank up until the 1970s, at which point they banned alcohol, and it hasn't actually made them a lot happier.
No,
as
but
far as I can
couldn't
tell.
we
It's
learn
made them
better
quite angry, in
habits?
fact.
Couldn't we learn better habits as a country when it comes
We
to drinking?
could learn better habits. I do
Moderation.
think that the European stance on alcohol is far better than the British one, but unfortunately we're not going to be able to reinvent the wheel. We are who we are. We're cooked cakes. We're not going to change British culture.
Well, we do have a few emails from people on this topic. We've got Adrian here says, I don't drink now, but since lockdown, I eat far too much.
Yep.
I blame the lockdown. Stuck in the house, work, shops, home, eat, repeat. I mean, this goes into what you were saying.
Yeah.
He's wrong. You're saying he's wrong to blame the lockdown, Rebecca.
I think that there's a lot of personal responsibility not being taken on a lot of different fronts. At the end of the day, we need to look why we are doing that.
Yes.
We need to do something about it for ourselves rather than channel it elsewhere.
OK, we've got one from Joe here. This is not a problem. If you don't want to drink, then don't. If you're too weak to say no, you get what you deserve. But, I mean, of course, what if we're talking about alcohol addiction?
Yeah, that's call somebody weak is too far.
It is addictive.
It is addictive, and our culture is a little bit out of control. But that's why we must take personal responsibility, do our bit, and hopefully other people may follow.
OK, well, after the break, I'm going to be asking, are we a sexist nation? And we'll also meet the McDonald's worker taking the internet by storm. Plenty more still to come.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday. And there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. You've been cancelled. Join the club. Oh, my goodness me. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Welcome back to Mark Dolan Tonight with me, Andrew Doyle. Now, are women being treated unfairly as they get older? Broadcasters Livy and Chrissy say that they not only have to deal with sexism in the workplace, but they also face age discrimination too. So in their new book, Sex It, they explore how women are treated differently in walks of life, and they're now on a crusade to help any women who are feeling invisible, helping them to break down sexist barriers. I'm delighted to say they both join me now. Thank you very much for joining me today.
Hi. Hello.
Could you tell us a little bit about
having us. Good to
No
see
trouble
you.
at all. Could you tell us a little bit about your book, about Sex It? What is the fundamental premise that you're arguing here?
Well, the title is The Scandal of Sex It. So it's a scandal. That's the beginning of it, isn't it, wouldn't you say? And we're really trying to highlight awareness that women of a certain age aren't being represented in the place we come from, which is media. On our TV screens, in films, in magazines, in newspapers, there's not enough. So we don't have that mirror image of ourselves where we can look at ourselves and say, there's someone older than me on the screen. How great is that? And we think that ripples into society.
Yeah. we do think that perhaps people putting on programs, films, they don't realise the effect that having older men and younger women constantly on our screens is going to have to women in wider society. Because sex ed is a feeling. It's a feeling that you're being made invisible. And it does not feel good.
Have there been any studies into this to show the degree to which the extent of the lack of representation of older women in the media? Can you give us any sense of, or is this just something you've noticed?
It's both. We've done a lot of research, which is in the book, you know, with figures and numbers of exactly how many women. But I think also we have experienced it.
Yeah. There's lots of research in the book, and it is a well-known phenomenon, and there are people already campaigning against it. But what we're saying is that we've got to really look at how this affects all women and how it makes all women feel. It makes women feel like they hit a certain age and they are relegated to room 101. Society is not interested in their skills and their talents anymore. Isn't that right?
I would think, yes, exactly. You know, you've got your fabulous Chanel handbag, and that's the cover of our book. With the exit sign, and you're leaving with all this talent and wisdom and expertise because you've hit a certain age.
So are you saying that ageism, of course, is something that can affect men and women, but women have the kind of double whammy of the ageism combined with a sort of retrograde attitude towards women that still lingers in society? Am I getting that right?
Yes, absolutely. It's a combination. We do get a double whammy. It's great, isn't it? Hands up to that.
Because
absolutely.
We often feel that we've advanced in terms of equal rights between men and women, but you're saying that when it comes to age, it just compounds the problem. What can be done to tackle this? Is it just about representation on the screen, or is it about attitudes among employers, say, things like that?
Absolutely. I don't think people are malicious. I think it's a lack of awareness, a lack of understanding. They just doing what they've been taught, or what their bosses did to them, or what they were taught as children. It's just ingrained, a bit like the emperor's new clothes. He's naked, but everyone's saying, yes, he's got clothes on. I think we're dealing with that situation as women of a certain age, which is they just need to wake up. And what we're trying to do in our small way is shed some light on a subject that maybe hasn't had the light shed on it. It's the language. I mean, we did a little sketch the other day, filming, and the sketch was about mutton dressed as lamb. Are we mutton? Are we lamb? What is this? And we were checking out, do men have this expression? We couldn't find an expression where a man would be called that or would have that little tinge, and it's just inbred in us.
It's very subtle. It's really subtle. And what we're saying is that a lot of women don't realise it's happened to them. In fact, it's a bit like, you know, you're losing your passion, you're losing your creativity. Why? You might think, oh, I'm getting older. But actually, is it that? Or is it because you're not being... There's a silence when you put things forward. I mean, we've been in meetings, that meeting when...
The meeting. When we first realised, when we were writing the book, I don't know, I'm sure you've been at meetings where we're talking about what do the remit audience want to hear? They're 50 plus. And we think, oh, we're the only ones in the room who are 50 plus. Great. Hello. And your voice, it's like the desert at that moment. Whoosh, as if you hadn't spoken.
Yeah.
So it's just those little subtle things that happen in a meeting, or somebody just, it's the silence.
It's the silent treatment, and you start to lose your confidence. You start to lose your sense of feeling...
That passion,
lovely,
that creativity, that fabulousness.
Yeah.
And we've been thinking it like to a bad love affair. You know, when your lover doesn't love you anymore and they disappear and you still love them and they're kind of a bit cool with you. That's what it's like.
So you're talking about raising awareness, changing culture to improve attitudes towards older women. Is there something that women themselves, when they're getting older, can do to change this trend?
Absolutely. I think that's what our book is, because it's a how-to book as well. Aside of a load of celebrity stories where we get up to great mischief because we're women of a certain age and we think, well, why not? Why don't we? I think it's about feeling confident and not buying into it.
Yes.
You know, because sexit is a feeling. Sexit is an emotion. When you feel really rubbish and angry and depressed and down and on the floor, and men feel it too, don't get me wrong, it's at that moment you need the support of the gang that pulls you up and goes, oi, you are creative, you're talented, you're fantastic, keep going. Don't give up.
Yeah, reinvent yourself maybe. I mean, we've always sort of like egged each other on. We're like the naughty girls at school, you know, and we've had feedback from people that listen to our radio show. You really showed us that we didn't have to fit into this box that, you know, society is trying to fit us in. You know, we can be who we are, you know, and that's great. And if we can do this to an even wider audience with this book, then, you know, that we're happy with that, you know. And there are exercises in this book where the reader can, you know,
go inside, find a calm place and find that confidence to be who you are and not be limited. So I do think it's about confidence and not buying into having to be a certain way.
Yeah.
Well, Livia and Chrissy, thank you so much. The book is called The Scandal of Sexit, and I'm sure people will check that out.
Here it is.
And there it is. Thanks very much for joining me tonight.
Lovely
you can pre-order it now on our website.
I'm going to go to our panel now, and we're going to discuss some of those issues. Are we ageist as well as sexist? Rebecca, what do you think?
I'm struggling.
OK. Why? Just in general? Or...
Well, hey-ho. So I kind of feel like they were taking me on a little bit of an educational journey because I don't feel like this is an issue that I see or really identify.
OK.
So obviously when they were talking about underrepresentation in the media and things like that,
Yes.
I'm legally trained, I love a fact. I was hoping they were going to give me some. I know they've said that there's some in the book, but actually I do feel like there is quite a bit of representation within the media for women of a certain age.
So, well, this is why I asked about the studies, whether they're...
Yeah.
So it would be interesting to look at the book and maybe I'm wrong and
maybe I'm wrong
Yeah.
as well. However, there is also then the point that, you know, in society today, various different groups of people, as we've already established on this show tonight, all have various different issues and everybody has a point to raise. But do I think it's as big as what they're saying? Honestly, no.
Lisa, do you think that there is still a lot of sexism out there and that it particularly affects older women?
I mean, do you know what? Honestly, I think there is. Like I said, I don't know if it's as big. I don't know. I'm not in that position yet. However, I do think that that's always been the kind of mindset of society, you know, a woman gets to a certain age and she's deemed as, you know, disposable, and then the young one comes along.
It's very
and
old-fashioned.
Yes, you know. But I still think it's very much there. And I think, you know, you look at, you know, type George Clooney types and they're deemed as more attractive as they get older. I think that's just the way that society has made things.
No, I'm more interested in hearing from older people because I just think they know more.
Like I said, we were just saying then, you know, I feel like there are people. I mean, I look at, like, I watch shows like Loose Women and you know, there are older ladies on there and I, thoroughly enjoy watching them.
Benedict, do you have any thoughts on this?
Yeah, I mean, that's not even society about, you know, younger women and older men. That's biology, actually, what it comes down to, ultimately, is what it boils down to. And a lot of women, when they are younger, are able to capitalise on... This is the way you have to think about it. The media is about selling things. It's not about truth, it's not about the news, it's about selling something. A lot of women, when they're younger, they sell their youth. And a lot of men, when they're older, they sell the illusion, I suppose, of wisdom and maturity. But that is ultimately what it boils down to. I know it's not nice, we don't like to talk about it, but that is ultimately what it is.
Once you get a socially constructed idea...
Well, is it a socially constructed idea? We can watch TV. This is ultimately what these two ladies are arguing about, is that once you get over a certain point, you're not worth so much anymore. But because it is about selling something, I think we need to recognise that women over a certain age represent a really large portion of the population of the United Kingdom. They are healthier than their male equivalents. They live a lot longer. They represent this very large... I hate to talk about it in these terms, but market. You need to think of a way of reinventing yourself to make yourself relevant. I mean, as you just said, you like to listen to older people because they tend to be wiser. There used to be that thing, didn't there, about the wisdom of older people, especially actually of older women rather than older men. That seems to have slightly evaporated from society. I do actually agree with you. We do see a number of older women on television, Loose Women, Mary Berry, Joanna Lumley's still on quite a lot, but they're not quite as many as their equivalent men, I would say, is the key thing. But they are dwarfed dwarfed by younger women, and that's the key thing. There needs to be a way of repackaging and reselling the older woman if you want to have a media career, because selling is what it's about.
Is it just a question of sexism? Is it sometimes that even younger women themselves aren't promoting other women? You know, is that part of this?
What a question. I actually think that a lot of this is that women suffer imposter syndrome.
OK.
Hugely. And I kind of feel like this is where this is going, is that they don't feel good enough in themselves.
Right.
And it's a confidence issue in general, rather than it being a major society issue. I think that as women, we're always doubting ourselves. We're always thinking we're never good enough. So
it's a shallow society. Like,
OK,
you know.
well, very fascinating topic, but that's all we've got time for that. After the break, we're going to be joined by the McDonald's manager, who has taken the internet by storm for his amazing singing. You won't want to miss that.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. You've been cancelled. Join the club. Oh my goodness me. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GBNews.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
It's 10 p.m. Welcome to Mark Dolan Tonight with me, Andrew Doyle, taking the reins for the evening while Mark is away on holiday. We've got a fun-filled, jam-packed second half of the programme prepared for you, so do not go anywhere. At 10:20, we'll be crossing to the States for the best of America's news with the Queen of Showbiz, Kinsey Schofield. And as always, at 10:30 p.m, me and my wonderful panel will be going through tomorrow's front pages. But first, here are the headlines with Tatiana Sanchez.
Thank you, Andrew. It's 1 minute past 10. I'm Tatiana Sanchez in the GB newsroom. Two men who were arrested on suspicion of murdering Olivia Pratt-Corbell in Liverpool have been released on bail. The 9-year-old was killed by a gunman in her home on Monday. One of the men who was questioned has been recalled to prison after breaching the terms of his licence. Police have also renewed their appeal for more information, urging the public to come forward so they can bring those responsible to justice. The Chancellor has acknowledged middle-income earners and the most vulnerable face hardship over the coming months. Nadeem Zahawi says he's concerned about people who aren't on benefits, telling the Daily Telegraph those earning around £45,000 a year may also need government support. It's after Ofgem announced an 80% hike in the energy price cap. The Met Police will be investigated following the death of a man in Kingston in southwest London. Officers were in the process of making an arrest following an allegation of theft when he entered the River Thames last night. His body was recovered 2 hours later. Police say he wasn't in handcuffs. The incident has been referred to the Independent Office for Police Conduct. 3 years after he was killed in a crash, the family of Harry Dunn say they miss him terribly. A memorial ride has been staged at the US Embassy in London to mark the anniversary of his death. The 19-year-old was killed when his motorbike collided with a car, which was allegedly being driven on the wrong side of the road. American Anne Sakoulas was charged with causing death by dangerous driving, but was allowed to leave the country because she had diplomatic immunity. And a car once owned by Princess Diana has sold at auction for £650,000. The black Ford Escort RS Turbo, which was driven by the royal between 1985 and 1988, was initially expected to fetch around £100,000. Silverstone Auctions says the RS Turbo Series 1 was usually made in white, but the royal family police guard asked for Diana's to be painted in black for reasons of discretion. NASA is launching a new mission to put humans back on the moon. The first test flight of the Artemis program on Monday will be unmanned, but astronauts are scheduled to be on board in 2024. The eventual aim is to build a base camp on the moon where people can live and work. NASA sees these missions as a new chapter in space travel.
It's no longer the Apollo generation. It's the Artemis generation. And that brings new discoveries, a whole new world of discoveries.
TV, online and DAB+ radio. This is GB News. Now it's back to Mark Dolan tonight with Andrew.
Welcome back to Mark Dolan tonight with me, Andrew Doyle, masquerading as Mark today. We've got everything you need to get you through this Saturday night. In a second, we're going to be meeting the Muck MC, the waiter who's taking London by storm, rapping while he serves burgers at McDonald's. Still with me, I've got my awesome panel, Olympic athlete turned broadcaster Lisa Mason, lawyer and author Rebecca Jane, and last but not least, political commentator Benedict Spice. And with them, I'm going to be discussing if we are lazier than ever before as a society. Plus, we have the best of the news from stateside and tomorrow's front pages. But now, it's the time we've all been waiting for. The legendary McDonald's MC, Richard Walker's been taking the customer service to another level, busking while he serves in the fast food chain. He's racked up 1 million views on TikTok. He's certainly bringing unexpected smiles to people's faces. Let's have a quick look.
Let's flip the track with the old school back. This is how we do it. All hands are in the air. And waving from here to there. If you want to be mad.
And we can chat to him right now. He's in the studio with us. Richard, thanks so much for joining me.
Hey, it's good to be here.
So when did you have this idea? I mean, how long have you been working there? And did you just suddenly decide you're going to start singing to the customers?
Well, it wasn't entirely my idea. I've been working at McDonald's this will be my 10th year, starting from October. But 5 years ago,
yes,
my business manager caught wind that I do a bit of singing and a bit of music at church.
Right.
So he said, why don't you bring a little bit of that to us for our charity event that we're having? And the people responded really well to it. And from there, you could say they were loving it.
Yep, fair enough. Well, why not? Use the slogan.
There you go, cheap plug, as if they need it. And from that point, the customer response was pretty clear that they wanted it. And the manager said, let's have this every day as much as possible.
So how much do you do of the singing during the day? Do you just continually do it?
Well, day is not the operative word, but I work at night.
Okay.
These days. So you get a lot of clubbing customers, with their friend Jack Daniels, if you know what I'm saying.
Yes, absolutely.
And, but also, fun and lucid people out for a good time. I do it every day, as much as possible. If it's really, really busy, then I'll concentrate on handing out food because that's kind of the reason people go there.
Yeah, well, I've been in a McDonald's late at night after hours, and it can be quite raucous in there anyway because people have been having a drink, know. So is this a way that you sort of you help that you calm people down and you let them know they can enjoy themselves? And
yeah, it's something that my branch, Liverpool Street, is the busiest non-drive-through McDonald's in the entire United Kingdom.
Is that right?
So you get a lot of foot traffic. So there can be some lulls in the time that the food's being served. So it calms people down. It brings us together a bit.
Yeah, because drunk, hungry people, they're pretty difficult to deal with sometimes.
Oh, yeah.
And do you have any particular requests? Do people request songs, or do you have a repertoire that you decided on?
I have a repertoire because I can't sing everything.
Right. Yeah, you've got to do a bit of rehearsal, right?
Yeah, a bit of rehearsal. I've built up a little repertoire, a little Bob Marley, a couple of Ed Sheeran songs. I've got a little range.
Okay.
Depending on the age group of people that I'm seeing. So.
Yes. Oh, yeah, of course, because it's got to be within their taste, right? The things that they want to hear.
Yeah, I mean, generally, people are already shocked at the fact that somebody is singing in McDonald's anyway.
Yeah, exactly.
So, you know, that helps. The novelty kind of gets us there, and the fact that I'm an okay singer.
Yeah.
Is the cherry on top.
And are the other members of staff joining in at all? Is it just you, or are you just a one-man band in this?
It pretty much is just me.
Yeah.
The staff, 98% of them seem to enjoy what I'm doing.
Okay.
So,
they're all happy.
They're loving it too.
Okay. Did you put it on TikTok, or did someone else put the footage up there? What happened there?
So when I started this, I had no intention of really going viral or anything. But a few times I would see videos pop up of me.
Yeah.
And nobody knew my name.
Yeah.
So at that point, I was like, well, I'm going to start holding a sign.
Yes.
With my name on it, with my Instagram handle and my TikTok handle.
Yes.
And if anybody captures a video of me, they can tag me in it.
Yep.
Then I can have the video for myself. I can see the comments that's going on. I have a background in filming.
Okay.
So it's sort of ironic to me that most of the filming of me now is not done by me at all.
Yeah, it's someone else.
Yeah, it's entirely other people. With their permission, I take their video and put it online on my page. But
I see.
Most of the viral videos are by other people who enjoyed my customer experience, if you will.
But given that it's gone viral now, I mean, there must be people who now turn up specifically to see you, and you must be being recognised a little bit, right? I mean, we can see some pictures here now on the screen of people wanting selfies with you. You've become a bit of a celebrity.
A little bit. It's interesting. I'll tell you that. A few people have come and given me a couple of gifts. A couple of girls wrote me a song.
Yeah.
Which was quite funny. It is actually becoming a tiny bit troublesome, I think, to the management, because people are coming literally, and asking for singing, buying food just to keep hearing me singing.
Yeah.
So I think everybody's learning to deal with that as well.
Yeah, but that's part of it, isn't it? I mean, you have those American diners where people go along to see the staff get up and dance on the tables and things like that. So
of course.
Why can't we do a similar thing here?
Well, I mean, I can leave the table dancing, but I get what you're saying.
And are you going to be working there tonight, or can we come and see you?
I'll be there.
Right.
I'll be there. I'll be there.
Fantastic. So Richard knows a bit about brightening up people's days, and yesterday we touched on Keanu Reeves surprising his fans at their wedding. So we wanted to know what things have been brightening up your day as well. Has anything brightened up your day particularly? Have you ever been surprised with a random act of kindness, Richard?
I've been surprised. I mean, you talk about people who appreciate what I do. People have given, maybe I shouldn't disclose this, but people have given a lot of, shall we say, tender.
I think I understand where you're going with that.
Yeah, and I appreciate it.
That's because you've gone viral, right? That's because everyone knows who you are now.
To be honest, a lot of tender that I got was before this ever really got out.
Yeah.
A very nice person came in and said, because I was doing it for charity originally.
Yes.
Raising money for Ronald McDonald House charities. And the gentleman said, I see you singing and raising all this money. And he was like, this is for you, though.
Yeah.
This money I'm giving for you.
Right, okay.
And he didn't have to. And I didn't realize how much of an impact, like a bit of kindness or a bit of something unusual, a bit of passion really has an effect on people.
Also, you really give the impression of someone who really loves his job. And I think you seem to be having a good time, right? And I think that's really important for people, because most people don't get that at work. Most people don't enjoy what they're doing.
It's definitely unusual this country very much has a sort of live to work sort of culture.
Yeah.
So if you spend a lot of your time in this place of work, you've got to try and enjoy it.
Yeah.
And to be honest, one of the things McDonald says is you got to be yourself.
Yeah.
And this is the great opportunity that I have to be myself.
Do you want to
as much as possible?
Can you give us a burst of what your favourite song? Can you do that for us, or is that putting you on the spot?
Oh no, I can't do that. I'd rather be lying in my bed, thoughts running through my head, and I feel that love is dead. I'm loving angels instead. And through it all, she offers me protection, a lot of love and affection, whether I'm right or wrong. Down the waterfall, wherever it may take me, I know that life won't break me. When I come to call, she won't forsake me. Do-do-do-do-do. I'm loving angels instead.
Richard, that's fantastic. That deserves a round of applause from our panel, doesn't it? Great stuff. I'm going to see if I can bring my panel in now on this. What do you make of that? You must have been in McDonald's late at night, Lisa. You must have seen what this is like. Wouldn't this improve things a little bit?
I mean, I think it gives a good vibe, doesn't it? You know,
Yeah.
I think it's fun. Instead of me being miserable because me burger's been smacked around and it's this big and doesn't look like in pictures.
It's a really interesting idea, though, isn't it? I mean, it sort of changes the whole dynamic of late-night eating. Sometimes, to be honest, I find it a little bit intimidating going into those places late at night, but I think...
Imagine working there.
Well, yeah, exactly. It's like being the taxi drivers late at night, having to take the drunk people home. But, you know, this seems like a really interesting way to just sort of let everyone know, just calm down, your food's come in, just enjoy yourself a little bit. Benedict, I can't see you in a late-night McDonald's, to be honest.
Yes, probably for the best. If anybody does see me, no, you didn't.
I
think, I mean, it's an interesting concept. I like it. But do you take requests, or do you just have a playlist that you go through? Is it going to be like at a house party when somebody grabs the... I was about to say grabs the iPod, but people don't do that anymore. They don't have iPods anymore. You know how it is, though, when you've got a playlist and somebody starts to mess around with it, things can get a bit rowdy in McDonald's late tonight when somebody makes a request and they don't get what they want. So do you just...
I asked for M&M!
I said I went to university in Liverpool, had a great old time, and sometimes I go back there. Sorry. But no, seriously, do you take requests? If one of us were to ask for something, could you do it off the cuff?
Go on, Rebecca. Go on. We'll come to you.
Yeah, so can you do like a GB News rap?
Off the cuff.
Yeah, go on. Original material.
So, Richard, you're mostly singing rather than rapping, isn't it?
Strong now.
It is mostly singing, yeah.
Yeah, OK. Well, you know, it's funny you say that, Rebecca, because we were going to ask to see, because we're going to go to a break now, and we thought we might ask Richard whether he could tell us what's coming up in his own style. Richard, what do you think?
Well, apparently, coming up, we'll be crossing live to the States for the latest news with Kinsey Schofield. Plus, we'll have tomorrow's front pages at 10:30. Don't go anywhere.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday. And there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch.
You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh, my goodness me. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Welcome back to Mark Dolan Tonight with me, Andrew Doyle. And of course, we just had Richard Walker, the singer from McDonald's. I mean, he was great fun. Yeah, he's got a lovely voice as well.
Yeah.
You know,
You're looking at us rather accusingly. He was great fun with a lovely voice, guys.
Well, you might want to liven it up a bit. That's all I'm saying. Maybe you should sing a bit more, and then
We can't help you.
No.
We're not here for that.
I want a three-way harmony. Basically, I want you to be able to harmonise.
La 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 la.
But isn't it nice
I
that
can
someone
sing
enjoys his
Jerusalem.
job so much? This was the thing that I found quite interesting
That's
about
a
it. because
rarity.
So many people
Yeah.
just don't. And so maybe it's a good idea to liven things up a little bit.
Yeah, have a bit of fun, for goodness sakes. We're British. We're supposed to do this random stuff.
Yeah.
It's fun.
It's how you can tell if everybody is enjoying themselves is by singing. Then I really hope that the backroom staff don't all break into song in your ear.
Yeah,
in the
exactly.
break.
I think
Might
we
be
should break into
great.
song all the time. Should do it on GB News. Except I can't really sing.
Can you imagine?
Anyway,
Oh, very.
now it is time, of course, to go to the States and to get all the news from the wonderful Kinsey Schofield. So, Kinsey, are you there?
I'm so jealous that you got to meet Mr. Walker. He is precious. Thank you for that segue, that tease. It was nice.
So he's even gone viral in America then, has he?
He has, yeah. I've seen plenty of stories on him over here, and he seems to have such a good heart. He's very precious.
Yeah, he seems great. So there's a few things I want to talk to you about. The first is about Meghan Markle, who's obviously claimed the #1 podcast position on Spotify's charts in 6 markets worldwide, including the US and the UK. And this is the show Archetypes, which is apparently the most popular podcast at the moment on Spotify. So is Meghan Markle the new Joe Rogan?
Oh, she's definitely not the new Joe Rogan. I think that this is a case of, hate watching or hate listening. Everybody's curious. And I'm not trying to be critical. I'm just saying, will she be able to continue having numbers like this? I think it's questionable. Mariah Carey's her next guest. I highly doubt Mariah Carey will give her as much time to talk about herself as her friend Serena Williams did. But these are two huge names. Obviously, she's going to use these bigger names to elevate herself and elevate her brand. But after Mariah Carey, we have Mindy Kaling, who I do think, she's a great comedian and a familiar name. But then the names starts to kind of look questionable. You're not familiar with a lot of the other people on the podcast. So I'm not sure she will be able to sustain that #1 spot. I think this is truly curiosity. And I do think that the palace is likely nervous about it because she's obviously not holding back. And it's 12 weeks where she could perhaps, complain more about experiences that she had as a member of the British royal family. Although it was very, very temporary. I mean, that was she was a royal for 2 weeks. I don't know if that's 12 weeks worth of content.
But do you think that, there was a lot of criticism, wasn't there, about her first episode with Serena Williams, that she wasn't really letting her guests speak as much as she should, and therefore you got the accusations that she was making it all about her. And if you've got someone like Serena Williams there, you want to hear from her, really. That's part of the skill of interviewing, isn't it?
Right. And if the entire podcast is about how women are supposed to overcome stereotypes, I want to know how Serena Williams overcame stereotypes. She's an incredible athlete, one of the greatest that the world has ever seen. What struggles did she face and how did she overcome them? This is a good opportunity for Meghan to, really make a name for herself and be a face of the feminist movement. But she said the word "I" over 200 times in this 50-something minute podcast. So obviously she wants the focus to be on Meghan.
Do you have any thoughts about her interviewing skill? It is early days. Maybe it's something that she'll just become better at as she goes along.
Well, she's no you. I do love you, Andrew Doyle. I do enjoy watching your shows. But I think that the Serena Williams instance wasn't a great one because they are friends. And so maybe it was just two girlfriends chatting it up and maybe Meghan felt a little too comfortable. I think Mariah Carey's going to be a really good test because we know that Mariah Carey is high maintenance. And so we'll see how much Mariah Carey tolerates it.
That'd be fascinating. I think more divas is what you need, basically.
For sure.
Britney Spears has teamed up with Elton John to release her first new music for 6 years. This is a duet called Hold Me Closer that's going to be released on Friday. So how's that gone down in the US, Kinsey?
It's the #1 single. I mean, Britney got naked and got in her bathtub celebrating it. We got to see that all over social media. She's obviously really excited about it. Usually when I celebrate, I keep my clothes on, but that's just at the benefit of everybody around me. But this is going to be a huge step in the right direction for her comeback. Elton John, as we know, friends with Meghan Markle, is very sympathetic towards people that are going through difficulties. He talks specifically about Britney, about how his alcoholism really changed his perspective on life and how he wants to reach out to people in need and help them. And that's exactly what he was doing with this single, with the Britney Spears single. I think that people seem to like it. It seems like a good bop, as the kids say. We'll see how quickly she does go towards that big comeback that we're all anticipating or hoping that we see from her.
Is this something that Elton John does, that he kind of rehabilitates acts? Because I remember when there were all those accusations against Eminem for his homophobia, and at that point Elton John did a duet with him and hugged him, and that sort of helped to to calm those waters. Is he doing a similar thing here?
I do think so. I think that he has a soft heart and he feels blessed by all of his success. And, the best way to continue to ride that fame and to continue to be rewarded is to help other people out. So I think you're exactly right that when people are in jeopardy or he thinks something's unfair, he steps in and tries to make things easier for them.
I haven't heard the single. Is it any good?
I think it's cute. I mean, if you liked the original, I think you're going to be turned off a bit at first, but you just have to get into it. It just don't think about the original and try to think of it as something new. And if you don't have those expectations, it should be fine.
OK, I want to move on to another story now. A video showing Olivia Wilde begging Shia LaBeouf not to quit her film Don't Worry, Darling. And that was leaked on Friday. And Wilde can be heard saying that Florence Pugh should have a wake-up call, fueling rumours of major drama behind the scenes. So I'm guessing Wilde won't be doing too much press in the lead up to the release of the film?
I know that this is your probably least favorite story, and I'm sorry, Andrew, this is my favorite story that we're talking about because this has very strong Amber Heard vibes, okay? Olivia Wilde does this Variety cover story with her boyfriend's lyrics. She's so golden on the cover, and I mean, this is the best PR this woman has ever had in her entire life. Goes into the interview, totally destroys Shia LaBeouf, saying that he's difficult to work with, he's combative, and it's Shia LaBeouf, actually, that we believe leaks this video to Variety along with text messages and an email that he sent Olivia saying, I am not difficult to work with. You know that that's not what these circumstances are. I quit. I have a daughter. It's unfair for you to perpetuate this rumor. If you lie too much, it becomes the truth. And so one comment online said, I love seeing people get caught in lies. And that's really what this is. Florence, we do know that she has not promoted this on social media. So it does kind of make you feel like perhaps there's some drama behind the scenes. I mean, this pretty much just confirms it with this video leak. But just seeing somebody caught in a lie, gloating about something that they did not actually do, it's painful to watch. And if she'll lie about who she fired, she'll lie about her ex-husband, Jason Sudeikis, who she is just ripping into in the press lately and who has a really good reputation in the States for being a good human.
So, but Shia LaBeouf is known for being quite unpredictable and quite a bit of a maverick, isn't he? So is his testimony fully trustworthy?
His email seemed very honest. And again, he's got video and he's got text messages, but he says that he quit because he did not, it sounds like he didn't get along with his co-stars, and it sounds like they did not give him what he believes is a good enough amount of time for rehearsal. He is a method actor. We know he got in a fight with Tom Hardy on a movie set in the past because he was too method. So we do know that he's an interesting character and he's probably a little difficult to work with. But in this case, he says, look, I quit. And that's unfair for you to say that you fired me to protect this female staffer, when in reality, I have video of you begging me to come back to work.
Kinsey, thanks ever so much for joining us tonight. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
I'm going to come to my panel now about these various stories. Do you have any thoughts on Meghan Markle's podcast. Has anyone listened to the podcast with Meghan and Serena Williams?
No, I haven't.
No, I haven't heard it either. So I'm a bit loath to criticise it because it might be brilliant.
I think what she said was probably right. She's friends with Serena, so I would imagine it is a little bit more, you know, girlfriendly chat, and that's what you do. You know, when you're having a conversation with your girlfriends, it's like a relatable conversation, isn't it?
And those are the best podcasts, aren't they? Where it's more conversational, more laid back.
I think everyone's very quick to kind of go at Meghan a lot of the time, but
can't stand her.
Really, you can't stand Meghan or Serena?
No, Serena, fine.
Everyone loves Serena, right?
Meghan, can't stand her, not listening, go and live your quiet little private life that you wanted in America and clear off.
What, with her big podcast?
Yeah, exactly. See what I mean? It's like, we want a private life, leave us alone. Yeah, but Netflix, podcast.
Yeah, but she's just trying to find her thing, the thing she's
That was
good
her
at.
thing that she was doing before, and that's the thing. And I think a lot of people criticise her because the reality is, you know, everyone criticised Kate when she first came in and said that she was common. You've brought a lady that is coming from Hollywood that is known for paparazzi and doing stuff like this anyway, and then everyone wants to have a go at her for doing what she's been doing her whole life.
But she also said that she wants to be this private person. Don't say that. Don't contradict yourself.
Yeah.
It's nonsense.
You got any thoughts?
I think it's very curious that she's, in order to have a successful podcast, if it's going to be a success or not, she's having to hitch the wagon to the biggest of big-name celebrities she can get a hold of. Actually, as much as she's talking about herself, she needs Serena Williams, Mariah Carey, et al. And, you know, one of the things actually about successful podcasts, like Joe Rogan's, is sometimes you get big-name celebrities like Elon Musk, but he does something wild during it, like he smokes marijuana or something like that. But actually, a lot of the time, it's about finding people who are not big-name celebrities and everybody already knows everything about. It's about finding that sort of niche, interesting angle. Actually, that's what makes a successful podcast in the sea of so many podcasts, many of which do fail because actually they don't quite get there in time. They don't quite find their niche fast enough.
Now, people listen to Joe Rogan often for him and for his insights and the way that he conducts himself, so they won't have heard of the guest sometimes.
And yet he brings that guest to the fore. It's really interesting the way he does it. It's a talent that, you know, we have to wait and see whether or not Meghan Markle has it, but I suspect possibly not.
No, and she probably needs to learn that she's not the draw in that and let them speak a little bit more. Anyway, so it's time for a look at tomorrow morning's newspapers, hot off the press. So we're going to start with the Express, and the Express are leading with Boris golden future ahead. The PM insists that Britain will not buckle under the energy crisis. OK. We're going on to the Telegraph now. Truss mulls nuclear option of 5% VAT cut, the largest ever reduction, which could save families £1,300 a year in a £38 billion boost to the economy. We've also got here Rees-Mogg to sell offices of civil servants who work from home. It's going to sell off £1.5 billion of government offices in central London after civil servants refuse to stop working from home. That seems to be a common story at the moment. People they're so accustomed to working from home that they don't want to go back to work. Anyway, we're on to the front cover of The Sun on Sunday. And what have they gone with? Be plea. Give dad a job, Charles. OK, the loyal princesses Beatrice and Eugenie have asked Prince Charles directly to hand their disgraced dad, Andrew, a return to royal duties. The Observer now. So they've gone with unions to join forces for wave of strikes over cost of living. So that's Unison and Unite are urging coordinated action. And the pressure is now growing, of course, on Rishi Sunak and Liz Truss. We're going to go on to the Mirror now, I believe. And the front cover of the Mirror has new £1 million X Factor bullying claim. This is a scandal. The Simon Cowell company, Psycho, is it Psycho or Sicko? I imagine it's Psycho. They're facing a fresh legal case because 6 former contestants are going to sue his firm, claiming they were bullied on the X Factor. Often you see the bullying front and centre. They often televise it, don't they? Anyway, moving on now to the Star. And this is the last one we're going to look at. This is a child killing accused stabbed in cells. This is the man who was accused of stabbing to death 9-year-old Lila Valatite has been left with deep slash wounds after a jail attack. And those are your front covers. We've also, or maybe we've got the Times. Do we have the Sunday Times?
Yeah.
Let's have a look at this then. OK, and they've gone with a majority now expect delays in NHS treatment. So almost half think service is getting worse. And 6 in 10 people think the appointment waits are unreasonable. This is an ongoing story. We've had a lot of this recently. And there's also a story here. Truss mulls emergency cuts to income tax and VAT to tackle energy crisis. OK, so we're going to have a look at some of these stories then with my panel. Just have a look at the Telegraph first, if you don't mind. The VAT cuts. I mean, you know, obviously Sunak and Truss are under a great deal of pressure to address these cost of living issues. And how are they going to implement anything? Is there anything they can really do about this, Benedict? Or is it just the case that they're sort of, as one person put it, spitting in the wind?
It does rather feel like that. One very good article that I read earlier this week described it as the government's plan for the winter is to hope that the weather isn't too bad. And that is literally what it appears to be.
Yeah.
You know, Liz Truss has come into this race talking about her being, you know, the heir to Thatcher, because that's all the Tory party has, is appealing back to the memory of a woman who came to power almost half a century ago.
Yeah, she's even dressing like her.
Yeah, it was a bit depressing, but, you know, she's going all out. We're talking about tax cuts left, right and centre. She's only got 2 years, and as things currently stand, she will be out in 2 years' time, unless, you know, her policies make this, I mean, the Telegraph calls it the nuclear option, unless it has that kind of impact. But how does mass tax cuts necessarily prevent what else we have, which is rising inflation, which is a very important
Well,
part.
Rishi Sunak has suggested that her proposals are going to be absolutely disastrous for the country, to the extent that, you know, he's sort of damaging the party, I think, probably.
I think he is doing so in the knowledge that actually the party is headed for disaster as things currently stand. And actually, Liz Truss is throwing a Hail Mary shot with this. You know, it's a real gamble, actually. And I think his approach is a slightly more measured one. You know, I'm not a massive fan of Rishi Sunak, but I do actually think of the two, you know, everybody loves lower taxes, everybody loves that might stimulate growth. But right now, actually, what the state does not need to be doing is downsizing. The state is the only thing that is holding up great swathes of this country because over the years it has been allowed to decay. Right now, I'm afraid, is not the time to take a sledgehammer to it. You do that during prosperous times.
What do you think, Lisa? I mean, everyone's concerned. Everyone's absolutely terrified of the way in which these bills are going up, and the forecasts are really grim. I mean, people are going to be plunged into poverty, so something's got to be done.
Well, that's the thing. To me, it makes absolutely no sense. My, you know, brain can't even understand how you jump from, you know, 1,000 to like 5,000 a year, and it's just insane to me. I can't understand the whole thing on why it is as much as it is. I can't understand why they're forcing that on to people. And I believe there was something earlier on where they were talking about how many, you know, hundreds of thousands of people in debt already with, you know, energy.
Oh, yeah.
And how can they say they hope the weather's not going to be that bad when they've already said that we're going to have a really cold winter anyway?
Well, doesn't this just suggest that we are not equipped to deal with international conflict? You know, we don't have the buffers in place. We don't have our own means of generating electricity. I mean, there's an issue here, isn't there, Rebecca?
Absolutely there is. And, you know, it's one that should have been addressed a long time ago, and it's still not being addressed properly. It's nonsense claims like this that's on the front of the Sunday Express from Liz Truss, I will keep UK safe. Yeah. She's going to put us in World War III. Honestly, I am all for getting rid of a lot of these lot.
When you say we should have implemented measures before, do you mean like the way France did and they got nuclear power decades ago and they're reaping the benefits now? Is it that kind of thing?
Yeah, I'm not opposed to that. I also think that the whole fracking situation, I know that a lot of people disagree with it, I think we should be fracking and I think we should have been doing it.
Do you know?
Go on, Benedict.
No, the one part of Europe right now that is not actually suffering massive energy increases and is actually going to see its energy prices go down is the Italian region of Basilicata. It's the second most poor region in Italy. Why? Because when the rest of the Italian government was saying, no, net zero, no more oil, no more gas, they went, no, we can't afford to go down that route. We're going to exploit it. They are cutting their energy bills whilst the rest of Europe is freezing. And I think that kind of speaks, frankly, to the lack of preparedness and to the lack of foresight, really, that we've all gone, oh, yes, wars, global events, they don't affect us anymore. Oh, wait, no, they absolutely do.
Yeah. Is there anything to Gordon Brown's suggestion of nationalising the energy companies?
No. Because you still have to pay for who it is that's producing the energy, who's bringing it out of the ground. And if that's coming from the Norwegian government, the European Union, if it's coming from Russia, they're not going to be any more keen to do business with the British government than they are with private companies, especially seeing as we have a particularly bad relationship with a lot of those countries at the moment. It doesn't work. You still have to pay for the energy, which still costs the same amount of money.
Yes. Either way, we shouldn't be talking about this now. There should have been a plan in place a long time ago.
OK, well, quite damning. We've got, I mean, the front of the Express has Boris saying golden future ahead, saying but the PM says we're not going to buckle under the energy crisis. I mean, is he just sort of reiterating optimistic platitudes? It doesn't matter to him. I mean, he's sort of phoning it in at this point.
He doesn't care.
Well,
His gas bills are taken care of.
He actually doesn't care. He's on his way out. Where's Lord Gummy just spoken? Nonsense.
I thought he was referring to his children, I've got to be honest, with the golden hair. They're fine. The rest of us aren't.
Oh, nonsense.
Yeah. OK, well, we're not fans of Boris there, then. What else can we have a look at here? What about The Observer? What have we got here? The front cover of The Observer has unions to join forces for wave of strikes over cost of living. It does sort of feel like there are continual strikes at the moment. I mean, everyone seems to be striking. We even had barristers going on strike the other week. You know, so what's going on here?
Yeah, sick of a strike. But I get the... Listen, as somebody that comes from like the Manchester, Lancashire region, to come here and do this, every single time I've had to come here over the last 3 months, which is numerous, there has been a problem with the trains. I've had to drive because I don't trust the trains anymore.
Yeah.
In fact, actually, I did have a train booked for this morning. It got cancelled for another strike. Sick to death of them.
But, you know, these people are struggling to make ends meet.
We're all struggling.
We are, but, you know, you can understand why people would want to strike to improve their wages, surely, Lisa. I mean, it's an understandable perspective to take.
I guess it's understandable, but I agree with what she just said. You know, we're all struggling, and that's just making things worse. So while you're out here not working and having a strike because you want to earn more money, we've still got to get a train to get to work to make our money.
The only issue I have with that is when, as we've all discussed, we don't have much faith in the government to actually solve any of this.
don't.
When you have no faith in your government to solve this, you've got to look out for yourself. You've got to go get your bag. And that, I think, is why... that's why this is happening, because people aren't looking at this and going, everything's a golden future. They're going, you're useless. I'm going to get paid, because otherwise I won't be able to afford to eat my house.
Rebecca, I mean, you're a lawyer, so how do you feel about barristers going on strike? Because...
I know. It is a really difficult situation. Theirs is a little bit more different, if I'm honest. So yesterday I was on the front line doing covering the postal strikes, actually, and I was talking to them about it, how they got a 2% pay rise, and I don't agree with that. I think they should have got more. However, barristers... I can speak to solicitors' terms. Barristers are a little bit different, but solicitors in criminal defence have not seen a pay rise, and they are still on the legal aid rates from the 80s.
Well, people think they're all rich.
80s.
People assume they're all rich.
Yeah. I literally, law is my hobby because it doesn't actually pay.
Really?
Like, you can't actually afford... I could not actually afford to go into full-time legal employment whatsoever because it does not pay. And the criminal situation, we are going to have serious problems in the courts. We've already got serious problems, but we're going to have even bigger problems because every single solicitor I know is leaving the industry.
Wow. It's been very surprising, hasn't it, that Keir Starmer has not been supporting workers in their strikes. I mean, I think this has maybe damaged his reputation quite a great... Because aren't they the Labour Party?
Yeah, that's... I mean, the problem is he's trying to detoxify his party because under Jeremy Corbyn, its reputation went through the meat grinder. He doesn't want to be seen to be getting in bed with, like in the 80s, the militant tendency and all that sort of thing that did bring the country to a halt, especially if he's going to be going up against the new Margaret Thatcher, Liz Truss. He doesn't want it to be pitched in that way. He wants to be seen as being on the side of workers, but also actually of the people that are affected by strikes. It's a very difficult tightrope for him to walk, because otherwise they'll just, we all know how the Tories will spin it. It's, he wants the country to rot because he's a trot and everything. And he can't win in that situation. I think it's... I don't have a lot of sympathy for him in general, but that's actually a fight that he will struggle to win.
Can I ask you about the front cover of The Sun on Sunday? This is Princess Beatrice and Eugenie asking Prince Charles directly to give Andrew back his royal duties. You know, he's been that conspicuous absence even during the Platinum Jubilee. Do we feel that this is now the time is right? Do you think this intervention will help? Lisa, what do you think?
No, I think, we paid a lot of money to cover up whatever happened down there, and I don't think he should be. No, absolutely not.
But, we don't know what happened, do we? We can't be certain. I mean, you're a lawyer, Rebecca, we've got to be careful about this sort of stuff, don't we?
Listen, we also, in legal world, have to do a test of what a reasonable person believes. And what a reasonable man would believe, and based on the evidence, unfortunately, there is a reasonable conclusion to be had for most people.
But do you think that the accusation is sufficient, really? Because, that's sort of bypassing due process, isn't it?
I think, listen, we're not talking about normal people here. We're talking about the royal family and somebody in a very privileged position. He should have known better. You can't then just claim ignorance. He knew what was happening. Jeremy Epstein had been criminalised and then Prince Andrew flies to go and have a chat with him.
Yes.
I wanted to end our friendship in person. Shut up! You're a you're a royal family member. Stop it.
I think that's the thing that many people particularly are worried
Too
about.
far,
He already knew what this guy had done, and he continued
Yeah.
the relationship. And I think that's something people find difficult to forgive, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think it's really unfortunate because I really like the royal family. Don't like the government, love the royals. But unfortunately, I think that if they do things like this, then I think that we will see the end of the royal family. So,
But Benedict, you can understand
Well, if that
why
was
the
Meghan,
princesses
it would all be-
would plea on his behalf, why they would be concerned.
Of course, he's their father, you know, and even whatever one might think of him, you'd hope your family members might be the first to at least come to an understanding and try to forgive you for your failings. But you know, is it because is there a massive burden currently on the royal family? We have a lot of royals. I actually think there's more than enough royals to be covering all of his duties that he's no longer.
Is that right though? Because they're constantly working.
Well, they are constantly working, and they earn the money to live in the fantastic palaces that they do. I think that look, it's just don't want everything to be about PR. But it's a bad PR look.
Well, what does it mean for the future of the royal family? You know, because does this give momentum to those who want to abolish the royal family? Are we saying that it's you know, this kind of thing could be sort of the final nail in the coffin? Lisa, what do you reckon?
Oh, I mean, I don't know.
Are you a fan of the royal family? Do you want to keep them?
I mean, I think it's.
You were choosing the words very carefully.
What are you
Hello. We got to see it as a Republican. He secretly wants to
It's
man
a
the
love-hate, isn't it? I think, you know, we are, I think, as a nation and, you know, being British, and we are always going to respect, you know, good old Lizzie.
Well, she's very popular.
Yeah.
There's no getting around that.
However, the little outer circle, should I say?
Yeah,
that seem to misbehave in a way that doesn't make them look good.
No. But
I'm not a fan of them.
OK, fair enough. Fair enough. Any final thoughts on the royal family, Rebecca?
Yeah, keep them, love them.
You love them.
Oh, yeah, I'm all there for it.
Just don't bring Andrew into the fold again.
No, absolutely not. Andrew, and that's my issue, is that they try to reduce his power, and I always thought that they're going to try and find a way to bring him back.
Yeah.
Don't do it.
Yeah.
Stupid.
Benedict, any final thoughts?
I'd rather King Charles than President Truss. Put it that way.
OK.
I agree with that.
Right, let's have a look at the front cover now of the Sunday Times. So they've gone for these responses about the NHS. People just don't believe that the NHS is fit for purpose. People don't believe that they're going to be able to treat them quickly enough. I mean, what are the stats here? Almost half of us think that the service is getting worse. 6 in 10 say the appointment waits are unreasonable. I mean, they've got a point, haven't they?
I will start off by saying this, that I lost my grandmother about 2 months ago. And
So sorry.
Thank you. And she died, in my opinion, was left to die. And she bled to death for 30 hours because of failures at 3 hospitals, which has now been open for inquest, and I'll obviously refrain from trying to say any more. What I will absolutely say is that I've lodged a serious complaint with the chief exec of the trust, because 100,000% the NHS are failing people. I have a mother right now who's going through therapy because she has nightmares that she has to go into hospital, and she dies because she's lost that much faith in the NHS. So, yes.
I mean, people are waiting for an awful long time for operations that they need, for cancer appointments and these kind of things. I mean, it's so dangerous, isn't it, Benedict?
It is. It's a knock-on effect in some ways from COVID, and we always knew that that was going to happen, that whilst the service sort of in other parts of it, it didn't shut down, but people were, you know, told not to come, and, you know, lots of things weren't addressed. And then, of course, you have that massive surge of things that need to be addressed. So, obviously, there's a bottleneck. But you also have, and this is going to be a real issue coming into the winter, people not being released from hospital because they don't necessarily have anywhere good to go, and that's an issue of social care. And what you're going to see this winter, when people can't afford to heat their houses, you're going to have elderly people, vulnerable people, who will not be released back into their houses, which they can't heat, in case they get pneumonia, because then they'll just come straight around again, which will just increase that bottleneck.
I mean, it's such a shame, though, isn't it? Because, you know, the idea of free treatment for all and the National Health Service, what it stands for, is really, I think, valuable and important and a wonderful thing. And it's just... It's devastating, isn't it, that it's just not working at the moment?
I mean, yeah. I was sent an appointment for my daughter. I discussed this last time I was on the show for a paediatric appointment, and I was sent one at the beginning of this year for March next year.
Yeah.
Trying to get a GP to even pick up a call or take a call has been impossible to the point where I actually went and paid privately to get the issue resolved. I think that's the way that it is going with regards to the NHS. I think it's all going to be taken apart and privatised because I don't think people are going to. I mean, a lot of people are not going to be able to afford it, and I think something does need to be put into place with some form of, you know, healthcare plan like they do in America almost. Unfortunately, it's not ideal, and, you know, I was pregnant and had a lot of my maternity out in America, so seeing the difference of having free healthcare and not, you know, I've always praised the NHS. However, you know, it is crumbling, and it's like, you know, this promise that was made when we were leaving Brexit with the whole, well, we're going to put all this money into the NHS, and that's not happened. So.
No, is it a case of more money? We just need to prioritise the NHS financially?
I mean, part of it is money. It's also the system itself, though. I mean, this is partly why. I mean, you all know this, of course. Part of the reason that barristers are striking is because trials and things are being pushed back years. It's not just doctors' appointments. And this is the problem when we talk about, you know, yes, we want a small state, we want sort of pro-business, this, that, and the other. But when you have a politician coming out and saying we're going to be slashing taxes. Taxes go towards funding these services which are on their knees right now. Nobody's saying that we want to just throw money onto a burning bonfire, but right now, partly because of government policy, they are in the situation that they are. Now is not, I'm afraid, the time to be, you know, taking away that support.
OK, well, coming up after the break, we're going to have tonight's Great British Game Show. Plus, is Britain lazy? Find out in a minute.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday. And there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch.
You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh, my goodness me. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Now we're going to look into the new phenomenon of quiet quitting, where employees make no attempt whatsoever to go the extra mile. A recent report says that only a shocking 9% of workers actually feel engaged and enthusiastic about their job, which is the 5th lowest of all European countries. And this has led to many employees proudly doing the bare minimum, or just enough to keep up, then leaving work on time and boasting about it on social media. So have we fallen out of love with work? Or are we just plain lazy? Well, I'm going to come to my panel on this. Lisa, what do you think? I mean, do you think during the pandemic we just got so used to being at home that we now don't want to go back to work?
I think so, yes. I think everything became a lot easier and we didn't have to get up super early and do all those things that we were doing. So now the idea of having to go back to a routine that was, you know, strict. You had to get up. You used to get the train. You used to dress up, didn't you? And now people can just put on a shirt and put on like pants, and that's it.
If that.
If that, a lot of them don't. Yeah.
Go for days without washing and that kind of thing.
I think it's just getting back. I think, you know, them slowly rolling out days, I think is productive. I think 4 days a week working, I don't think is actually a bad idea. I think there's a couple of countries in Europe that do that.
Yeah, there's been an interesting thing. They tried it in Australia at a firm where they reduced the working week to 4 days a week, but expected the same targets.
Right.
And they met them.
Yeah.
Because people were more refreshed, they had the extra day, and they knew that when they were in, they had to get the work done. And maybe that's the future. What do you think, Rebecca?
No, I'm not for it.
No? Do you want to say why?
Yeah, because you know what? Office culture has a lot to answer for, and it's actually a really good, creative, productive thing. You know, I did it last year. I had quite a few people who were working outside of our organisation. It doesn't work.
When people aren't together, you mean? When they're not interacting?
Get in the office, brainstorm, be in front of people. You know, I've got one guy who I have to manage, and it's absolutely useless unless you're in front of his face telling him exactly what to do. And it's wonderful. Are we a nation of now lazy people?
Well,
yes.
I don't know. What do you think, Benedict? Because, I mean, there's been a lot of reports, even people in their 50s now taking early retirement, and I don't know how they can afford to, but apparently they just don't want to work.
I've got to be honest, Andrew, I was too lazy to read the article. I have no idea what anybody's talking. No, I think you know, a lot of this actually I think does tie into the pandemic, but also, you know, we're talking about cost of living crisis and this and that. There's not, you know, no money, you know, their wages aren't going up. There's not actually a lot of incentive for a lot of people right now. Everything feels very miserable because it doesn't matter how hard you work. Your energy bills are still going to go up. The food's still going to be too expensive. And, you know, perhaps that's a bit of a cop-out, but I do think it all sort of feeds into that culture,
Maybe it's all
that
just,
idea.
But just despairing. Anyway, it's time now to play the Great British Game Show. So, after 92-year-old Derek Skipper became the oldest person in Britain to pass his GCSE exam, in our Great British Game Show this evening, my panel are going to be trying to guess the ages of these high achievers who have mastered incredible skills later in life. Yeah, it's going to be tough, right?
Is Britain an ageist country? Here's a game.
We're all trying to get about ageism. OK, here we go. So, the first one. The oldest person to reach the summit of Mount Everest is Yuichiro Miura. How old was he when he completed this? Any ideas?
82.
94.
No way.
87.
I'm going to say 68.
OK, it was actually 80. Ooh. 80.
I win.
That's not bad. I couldn't do it now.
That is a lot.
So that's not bad at all. Anyway, another one. Johanna Quast, who is a retired PE teacher from Germany, is recognised as the world's oldest gymnast. How old is she? How old's the oldest gymnast?
Goodness. I want to say she's... Oh, my God, late 80s.
should know this, Lisa.
I know, I watch her. I'm 90-something.
What?
You're pretty close.
Yeah.
She's 86.
I was going to say late 80s there, 90-something.
Very impressive. Yeah. OK, and what about a marathon? In 2017, Irish racer Rosemary Smith became the oldest person to drive a Formula One car at what age?
Wow.
What do you think?
Formula One car? 103. You don't have to stand up.
91.
79.
We really went to the end of the
79. Have we got time for one more? Let's have a look. The oldest competitive ballroom dancer was achieved by Tao Porchon Lynch, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, declared the world's oldest living yoga instructor by the Guinness World Records back in 2012. How old was she?
Show us a picture. Give us a
picture first.
She's her desk.
80. 75.
Well, I think yoga keeps you looking very young.
It does.
Oh, it's
so
80 something.
So actually, she's 93.
No way.
See, yoga, I told you.
OK, well, anyway, that is all we've got time for. So thank you for joining us for Mark Dolan tonight. And remember, it's Headliners tonight at 11. I'm going to be hosting that, so join us in a few minutes.
Looking ahead to tomorrow's weather, and the UK is looking dry with sunny spells, though rain will continue across the northwest of the country. Let's take a look at the details. Mostly cloudy across northern Scotland this Sunday morning, with the risk of some light rain or drizzle in places. Temperatures around 13 degrees Celsius with light winds for all. A rather cloudy start across Northern Ireland, still some lingering rain towards the north and the west, best of the sunshine towards the southeast. Any mist patches will soon clear to leave a dry and sunny morning across northern England, some cloud drifting through on a light breeze. A dry start across North Wales and the Liverpool Bay area this Sunday morning, with any mist or fog patches soon clearing. Plenty of sunny spells through the morning, feeling pleasant with light winds. Morning mist or fog patches will soon clear across the East Midlands to leave a fine day. Plenty of sunny spells and light winds. Temperatures will be around 14 Celsius at 7 o'clock. The risk of a few light showers first thing on Sunday morning across East Anglia, but plenty of sunny spells too. Temperatures will start the day at around 15 Celsius. A dry and bright start to Sunday morning across southern parts of England. Any mist or fog patches will soon clear.